Hola a todos. Hi everyone. Welcome back to Metafit Metamind Podcast, a podcast in which speakers, leaders, entrepreneurs, and influencers come in and share their journey on how they've gotten to this place in their life while also normalizing those conversations between mental and physical health. I am Carla Rodriguez, your coach and trainer of NLP and host of this podcast. And I created this space to remind you to raise your voice and share your story. And as your guide, I am here to create a pathway to let go of all those limiting chains behind and using this platform to empower and create awareness, purpose, and expansion in your life. You can follow us on Instagram at Metafit Metamind Podcast, at Coach Carlita. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. All right, if you haven't done so yet and have been thinking about joining Metafit Metamind Academy, this is your opportunity to do so. The amazing thing is that this is something that I have reworked, this process, this training, certification, so you can gain powerful communication skills to know that you're making the decisions that you need to be making in your company and even in your personal life. And I do have a celebration to share with you that I have failed to say before in the previous episodes, but I want to celebrate. I was invited to be a board member for a really important organization called Women Without Limits Movement. This movement is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit, and it supports economically disadvantaged women and women of color by giving them access to the tools and resources they need to take their lives to the next level. It includes training to improve social skills such as problem solving, decision making, and critical thinking, and personal, financial, educational, and professional goals throughout their life journey. We believe women can experience more success when navigating and managing life's challenges and successes without sabotaging themselves. And so by giving them this access to our partner training and signature experiences, the yearly Women Without Limits Power Summit and Work It Awards women can invest more into their lifestyles without missing out on opportunities to improve their lives. By the way, if you're watching this, you probably see that I have a little guest here with me. So it's going to be his birthday pretty soon. And we had a recent photo shoot with the amazing Carolyn with Sweet Memories by Carolyn. She's a newborn and cake smash milestone photographer. And it was such a fun little experience, although it's a little workout trying to get a little crawler to stay in place like right now. So anyway, these little celebrations like this are what I live for, and that's why I do what I do and connect with amazing leaders that come on this podcast to share their journeys with you. So remember to share the podcast with people you think would like it, rate it, subscribe to it, and so you don't miss any of the updated episodes. Remember, I'm on Apple Podcasts, Google, Castbox, any other platform that you listen to. So talking about amazing guests, I got to speak with Tyguenne, who is a spiritual mentor, psychic medium, astrocartographer, and Reiki master teacher, and the creator of the Awaken Nomad Spiritual Mentorship, a transformative program for nomadic souls seeking deeper purpose and spiritual alignment, with a focus on overcoming limiting beliefs and tapping into their inner intuition. She guides her clients on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. And she shares her incredible journey from corporate life in San Francisco to a transformative awakening in Bali, where she discovered Reiki and meditation and yoga. She talks about trusting your intuition, like I said, the role of mentors in spiritual growth, and how Reiki and astrocartography can lead to profound healing and life changes. So listen in for this inspiring conversation that will hopefully give you some motivation to get in touch with that spiritual part of you and your intuition. All right. Welcome back, everyone, to Metafit Metamind Podcast. My name is Carla Rodriguez, and I'm really excited about today's episode. I mean, I'm always excited about having someone on powerful, but today I have someone really special who I've met through mentorship, coaching, and, we're always like helping each other out, looking out for each other online. And so I have Tyguenne here. She is a spiritual mentor, psychic medium, astrocartographer, and all things spirituality and growth and nomadic lifestyle, how you get into a space of like growth and finding yourself while you're out there traveling the world, exploring the spaces and the places and all the things. So thank you so much, Tegan, for being on here.
Thanks for having me, Carla. I'm excited to chat today.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. And it's also really exciting because people will learn from someone who's really into this spiritual realm, who's done the work. And I know it's not something that, oh, you're just here and cool, it's that easy, right? But before we even get to how you got here, tell me this, who is Tyguenne?
I love that question. I could go so many different directions with that. I could go the super woo-woo on you and say like I am a soul that has lived forever. I am infinite and I am
Mhm.
just temporarily in this human body of Tyguenne.
Yeah.
Or I could go to more who I am now. And, I am a free spirit in my heart. That's
Yes.
very true. I've always been that way. I am a spiritual mentor, and that has been a whole path leading me to get here. It's been my own personal spiritual journey, but I would say I'm a free spirit. I consider myself a nomad. I have wanderlust in my heart. I'm a traveler. I love new adventures, spontaneity. Like, I am just like, always excited about life. And I really, through my practices, have really like held on to mindfulness. And I've
Hmm.
realized that I really enjoy just being present in whatever I'm doing. But I would say that I'm a Sagittarius.
Hmm.
And for me, like being in a sense of freedom is where I really like bloom and where I really blossom. And that's a stage that I'm in right now, is just like ever
Yeah.
blooming.
Yeah, and any of you are just listening, not watching, she's always like super bright, like this biggest smile. Like she would definitely like you can tell she's done the work and she actually enjoys this life and is having fun with this life. I'll always throw the compliments whenever I can.
Thank
So,
you.
so receive, receive.
Yes.
So I know it hasn't been like, oh, you just got here. She's this woo, like this person who's lived on forever. I actually do believe too that have I had this other like really, really old life. So I'm with you there for those of you who are woo. So tell me like what was that moment or that page turn, that thing that brought you to where you are now? What's that story for you?
Yeah, there's definitely a moment. I got chills as you say that. Every time I have to like flash back, it honestly feels like lifetimes ago, even though it wasn't that long ago. So I've always been a little bit woo. I grew up in a spiritual family. So my concepts of like the afterlife and what we're here for and all that have kind of always been there. But there was a time where I was working in corporate cosmetics, and I've always loved that world. But back in the day, it wasn't necessarily really serving me. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm from California, but the Bay Area was kind of new to me. And I was caught up in this life that just one day I woke up and it wasn't resonating. I was in a job that wasn't really like respecting me. They weren't really giving me the recognition that I needed. I was in the car all the time. I was in traffic all the time. I lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment with roommates who had pets, and it was just a lot, and I didn't realize what a rat race it was for me. I was working 2 jobs. I was working during the day in my corporate life, and then I was working at a bar in nightlife just so I can, like, make ends meet, and also working in a bar was, like, fun for me. That was my outlet, and I always thought, like, "Okay, that's my outlet. I'm releasing. I'm doing fine." And it wasn't until I started feeling super out of alignment. I was in a relationship, and on paper, it was the perfect relationship. Everyone was like, "This man is amazing. Like, you would be stupid not to marry him." And I just had this inner feeling of like, this is not it for me. Like, this doesn't feel right. It was just a feeling, and I couldn't explain exactly what it was. But I ended that relationship. That was the start of it. And him and I had he loved the finer things in life. So we were jet setting all over the world. And after we broke up, I was like, you know what? I need to empower myself. I need to take myself on a vacation. Like, I need a break. I need a trip. Let me call up my friend. So I called up a friend who was solo traveling the world. And I
Hmm.
said, where are you going to be in January? Like, I'm coming to meet you.
Oh,
And
God.
yeah, I was like, I'm doing it. And she was like, I'm going to be in Bali. And I was like, okay, perfect. So I booked my 2-week vacation. And leading up to the trip, I was having what I now know my intuition was coming through and my spirit
Mm.
guides are coming through. And it was this feeling of like, you're going to go to Bali and you're not going to come back. So start packing up your stuff,
Oh,
pack extra
geez.
things. It was just this weird feeling, but
Yeah.
my ego like got like was like, what do you mean? I'm coming back. I have 2 weeks. I have to come back to my job. Like, I was having dreams. I was waking up to like phantom earthquakes.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
I would, yeah, in the middle of the night, like my bed would shake and I would wake up, and I lived in the Bay Area. So I'm like,
Yeah.
this small. And I would look up the magnitude of the earthquake and there was no earthquake. So fast forward to Bali. I ended up experiencing while I was there, I had my first ever Reiki healing, which is a long
Mm.
story in and of itself. I tell that in my
Yeah.
trainings, and I experienced a lot of physical sensations. I also had my first ever psychedelic experience with psilocybin, and that was like the kicker for me. Like
Yeah.
that was a full death and rebirth experience, and I just thought there's no way I could go back to my life after this. So
Mm.
day 5 on my 2-week vacation, I quit my job in an email, sent it straight up to corporate. I was like, I'm gonna go find
Oh,
myself. Like
girl,
I'm
you
not coming
are on
back.
it.
Yeah, it was bold. It was bold.
Yes.
But that changed my life. That led
Mhm.
me on a nomadic adventure where I traveled through Southeast Asia, and I just got hit in the face with every single spiritual modality.
Mhm.
Like my awakening was quick.
Mhm.
I Yeah, I experienced spiritual modalities. I got certified in Reiki. I went to my first vipassana meditation retreat where I sat in silence for 10 days. I did
Wow.
yoga for the first time. It was just like bing, bang, boom, everything all at once. And my life was forever changed.
Yeah, and so when you got let me go back a little bit. So when you got to Bali, you met your friend. Did you know that you were going to find someone that was going to help you and find these transformational experience, let's call them transformational experiences with you getting your Reiki certification? Were you specifically looking for someone or kind of like sometimes you kind of follow the guides, right? And if that teacher, that master will find you as well. Like how did that come about too? Did you know you want to do Reiki? What was that?
I had no idea. It really was like my purpose found me. When we went to see that healer, I didn't even know what Reiki was. I just knew we
Mhm.
wanted to see a traditional Balinese healer. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because my friend did her session with him first, then I did. And while he was doing the Reiki on me, he didn't say one word to me, so I didn't know what he was doing, but I was feeling all of these crazy sensations. And
Mhm.
again, I had that voice in my head that was like, one day you'll understand. Don't ask
Yeah.
questions, don't worry about it, one day you'll understand. It was super strong. Her and I
Mhm.
left, and I was talking to my friend, and I was like, "Oh, I wish he spoke English." Like, I really wanted to know what he was doing to me, but, like, I heard this voice that I didn't need to know. And she
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, well, actually, he did speak English, and he was speaking to me the whole time." So this same guy was, like, walking her through everything and then not saying a word to me.
Mhm.
So that, like, solidified for me that this was gonna mean something in my life, but I didn't know what. And so
Mhm.
it actually wasn't until 4 months later when I was in Thailand, there was a girl at my hostel, and she was sitting down, and she had her hands over her throat and her
Yeah.
eyes closed, and I went up to her, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And she was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just practicing my Reiki. I just got Reiki certified." And
Wow,
I was like,
okay.
"Whoa, okay." That was the thing I had done in Bali, and actually, before that, with the hostel, it was like a few days before that, I actually had to go to the hospital because I had, an infection in my
Oh, no.
stomach,
Yeah.
and I had actually realized that in the Reiki 4 months earlier, when he was over my stomach, I was seeing the color red, and I was, like, hearing sirens, and it was kinda like this, like, "Alert, alert, alert." And
Mhm.
then 4 months later, I got rushed to the hospital, and I realized that infection was probably there during the Reiki, and
Yeah.
so I was like, "Ooh, this means something." Then I find
Mhm.
out from that girl that I could get certified, and I wrote in the, like, island Facebook group of the island I was on in Thailand, and I just said, "Hey, I wanna get certified. Who's out there who could do it for me?" And that's where I met Sarah, my Reiki master. She's from the
Cool.
UK, and it was just, like, a series of events and so
Yeah.
many in between also, but I haven't sought out much of anything on my journey. I've been led to every single thing
Mhm.
that I've ever done. You know, yoga became a big part of my life, so then I decided to get certified in yoga.
Mhm.
Astrocartography was awesome for me when I was traveling, and
Yeah.
my psychic gifts came online just like suddenly. So it's
Yeah.
like my guides were guiding me. I never
Mhm.
thought that I would be here. And I remember actually years ago, I had a healer, quantum healer and psychic tell me she did past life regression and she was very
Mhm.
psychic. And she told me, "You're going to be just like me." And I was like, "What do you mean? Like
What is
psychic
this?
channeling? Like, there's no freaking way." I had another psychic that told me back when I was like really young that yoga was going to be a big, big part of my life. I
Mhm.
had nothing to do with yoga back then. So
Yeah.
I believe it was always written. It's like been a part of my path. And I think that when you reach a certain vibration and frequency and you allow and you
Mhm.
trust fall into the universe and you say, like, I'm open to my path. What am I supposed to do? I believe we get led to it. Like, we
Yeah.
have that ability.
And I think that's so interesting that you said this, that, there's all these instances where someone told you something when you felt something, when you heard something. And, most of the time, if we're not seeking it I guess something sometimes has to happen, right? But it's like we ignore those things until we're doing that purpose, and then we make the connection, right? We make that like that's what that meant. I didn't need to know how to get here to this moment. And I think that's a lot of people's caught they get caught on like how do I get there, right? And that's the cool thing I think that you've been doing has been to, like you said, trust fall into the universe, and that's gonna guide the purpose. The thing is gonna be there for you. So I think that's really cool that you've have made those connections. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. For me, it's all about like presence and
Mhm.
intuition. And like, I'm a huge, one of my like biggest teaching is about tapping into your intuition,
Mhm.
because I think we're all receiving those messages all the time. Like, you always know the thing that's good for you. You
Yeah.
always know the thing that isn't good for you. And
Mhm.
I've trusted that throughout my journey. And like, I believe you have to defy your intuition just as much as you have to trust it. But
Mhm.
the thing is, if you gain this self-awareness where you're like,
Oh my god,
oh,
yes.
see what I did there. Okay,
Mhm.
let me do something different this time. And you play these little games with your intuition until you get to a place where you're like, I know what my intuition sounds like.
Mhm.
I know what my intuition feels like. I might be doing something crazy to some people, like quitting my job in an email or like training or whatever. But like when you feel that connection, it's so important to listen to
Yeah.
that, to follow that.
Yeah, and for those people who aren't really sure, like maybe they're new to spirituality or Reiki, astrocartography, I think is something I'm curious about too. Is give me like, if you're able to, like a quick snippet of what Reiki is, what astrocartography is.
Hmm. I know it's so funny when I like go to list out all the things I do. I have like so many different modalities. So it's like
Yeah, I'm trying to
they're
check
all
in my head,
different,
like what
but
are these?
yeah, for me, they all work together. So Reiki was my first certification. So that's my tried and true.
Hmm.
Reiki is quantum energy healing. Reiki means universal life force energy. We all have the ability to access energy around us all the time. It's palpable.
Yeah.
Like when you walk into a room, you could feel the vibes we say of the
Hmm.
room,
Yeah,
right?
right.
You could feel if it's good vibes or bad vibes. Like what you're actually feeling is energetic frequency. And that energetic frequency is the frequency of the universal life force energy. So in Reiki, how I do it is I hover my hands over the body or I do it quantumly virtually, but
Hmm.
I am acting as a channel. So,
Hmm.
like a pipe, I'm opening myself up for this energy to flow, and
Yeah.
I am healing my client on multiple levels. So, it heals emotionally, it heals
Mm.
physically, it heals mentally and spiritually. I work directly with the chakras and I analyze if your chakras are overactive, underactive, or balanced.
Gotcha.
Based on whatever they are, you'll experience different symptoms. I
Hmm.
could go on and on and on. Obviously,
Yeah.
this too. So I take students for Reiki. And so it's, I mean, I could talk about this for hours and hours, but
You and I
Reiki
will be
is
talking
really
about that
good.
at some point. For
Yeah.
sure. For
Reiki,
sure.
it's good for you if you're feeling really drained, if you're feeling out of whack, out of alignment. It's a very relaxing process. It's a very healing process. Could
Mhm.
be very emotional where things come up, but things are actually released from your body. So afterwards,
That's
you feel
awesome.
better, mind, body, soul. If anyone has not experienced a Reiki healing, it is a game changer. It's still one of my favorite modalities ever.
Yeah, I've experienced it, and I remember just feeling like warmth. It was like I wasn't sure what that was. So yeah, it's an interesting experience for sure. And then, how did you get into astrocartography? I know you're a psychic medium, and you said that part, but how did you get into astrocartography? Like, again, did it find you?
Yeah, definitely found me. I remember years ago I was going to go see someone to get my astrocartography done and I never did because I didn't even know what it was called, to be honest, but for me solo travel has been a big part of my journey ever since that Bali trip. On and off
Mhm.
I've been solo traveling the world,
How
and
many years, by the way?
it's been since 2016. So I've done different
Wow,
stints all over.
you're
My
a
last
pro.
2 years. Yeah, more recently was 2 years. So I've actually been home for like almost exactly a year now,
Okay.
which is hard because I love being out there on the road. But
Yeah.
yeah, astrocartography also kind of found me. And as I was on the road, I realized like I need to start doing this for people because it was
Mhm.
so monumental for me. So what it is it takes your astrology. So we
Mhm.
look at your entire natal chart, and it's almost like
Okay.
taking your astrology and putting it all over a world map.
Mhm.
And all over that world map, there's different energetic hotspots for you based on where the planets were at the time you were born. And so there's different
Oh,
areas
okay.
of the world that hold different frequencies for you.
Mhm.
So based on what
Okay.
you're trying to attract, there's different places in the world for, your sun line is where you could be your most authentic, vivacious self. Your moon
Yeah.
line where you tune into your emotions. We have your Saturn line, which brings people a lot of trials and tribulations in their lives and teaches a lot of lessons. Your Pluto line is the line of
Yeah.
death and rebirth. So there are all these different planets and lines. So it shows you where in the world you can thrive, basically, and where you
Yeah.
may have challenges and where to be aware of that. And it gives you insight, whether you're a traveler or you're looking to relocate, or
Yeah.
even if you're not a traveler or relocator, you can harness these areas of the world, not
Hmm.
necessarily by going there, but you can connect to the energy of these different countries wherever you are. I love it
That's
because it
so
doesn't
cool.
you. Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, you have to live here for your best life. It's like
Yeah.
you can live anywhere, but if you want to bring love into your life, if you want self-acceptance, if you want a spiritual awakening, like we
Yeah.
can find where in the
Check these
world.
places out. So this
Yeah,
is
and
where you
past
look at the
lives.
7 houses, where the planets are and the signs in the houses and everything like that, right? But you do it specifically for world, like travel, yeah?
Yeah, you get
Mhm.
23 maps. So you
Mhm.
actually get the maps with the
Oh,
different
okay.
lines, and then you get
Yeah.
description. So I do it, I give like a 50-page PDF that you get to keep for life. And then you
Yo.
do an reading where we go over it. And then I do a 90-minute reading where I channel too. Because for me,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of like my expertise is I
Mhm.
channel with all of the offers or most of the offers that I give. We can tap into your spirit guides and
Mhm.
channel and get even more information after the Reiki, after the astrocartography, and kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah, and by the way, those who are listening, I did have an experience with Tegan actually recently in which she channeled, and it was such an interesting. I'll send you a separate video, but I'm just gonna say it right now. Like, it was such an interesting experience for me because there was a moment where I wasn't sure what to expect, and all of a sudden I feel like these like goosebumps, and then all of a sudden I feel emotional, and then I think I cried, and then I was like, "What is this?" And it's like this interesting experience that's like, whoa, like this kind of like inner part of you, at least for me, that started to be like, oh yeah, I remember this. It's like this memory that I had forgotten, right? And I've already dove into like the spiritual world and under like getting a little into that, but sometimes life happens and so we can stray away from that and stuff. But yeah, like for me, when you did that, it was definitely a very powerful experience because I most of the time I try to come into things very open-minded, very like open, like let me see what I receive. And I think that's why I also experience like very transformational and like powerful experiences. If you go into this, just I don't know if it's gonna work for me. Who knows what may happen, but she's very, very powerful in this. So I'm just gonna say that. And again, Tegan, I'm gonna send you a separate video, but I just needed to say that because days after that, some of the things that you said I'm good at manifesting that I shouldn't manifest, like started happening. I was like, no, I gotta put work on that. So
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
but
thank you. That's
it's
really
really
beautiful.
cool. And in entrepreneurship, I didn't ask you these questions because I get curious as an entrepreneur and you having found your purpose, the traveler experience, how has all of this helped you in your, because you left corporate just like that, so there was no like, in my, the way I hear it, there was no like transition, maybe that was your transition into entrepreneurship. So how has that like empowered you as an entrepreneur, as a leader? Like how has that been?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because it actually wasn't instant for me. I actually
Mhm.
went back to the corporate
Oh,
world,
yeah?
but in a way that was more aligned.
Yeah.
The cosmetic industry is a really beautiful industry, actually. So I was never like in a cubicle. I was never in an office.
Nice.
It's still a part of me, but it's interesting because I didn't fully trust
Mhm.
my entrepreneurial spirit back then. And it's funny because back in 2016, I like started my website. I started a blog. I like was starting a podcast before like podcasts were even happening. Like I
Mhm.
started all of these things and I actually didn't fully trust myself because what the world was reflecting back to me was people were saying, if you get into this industry, you're never going to make money. You're never going to be able to take
Mm.
care of yourself.
Yeah.
You're going to have to renounce all of your belongings, right? Like I fell into this trap of like,
Mhm.
well, if you're spiritual, like you can't do this as a job. And I
Yeah.
believe that. And it wasn't my, it wasn't my close circle or anything like that. It was just like me taking on, like, I don't think I could do this. And so it really had been a side gig for a really long time. And it wasn't until I came back to the States this time around that I decided I was ready. And it was a real
Mhm.
internal experience of like, what have I been doing that has not been serving me? And I realized that I need to
Yeah.
have roots a little bit, which has been my biggest fear because I've been moving around a
Yeah, yeah,
lot.
yeah.
And it was actually my friend who's an entrepreneur who sat me down and she said, "How are you going to go travel the world again and become this big time entrepreneur? Like, where are you going to put your abundance? You can't put it in your backpack. You
Mm-hmm.
need to have roots and you need to tell the world that you are ready and manifest and visualize and become this version of yourself. And then once you build it, then you will create that freedom and you can go again." And so
Yeah.
it's interesting that you say that because I'm still on this journey of fully telling the universe, which I've been doing for under a year now. It's like, I'm ready. I'm ready to take it to the next level. I'm ready to no longer play small. I am
Mm-hmm.
ready to know that I'm getting chills as I say,
Yeah.
I am in my purpose.
Manifest it.
Yes, Lionsgate portal, here we are. Yeah, my boyfriend and I just wrote our manifestations yesterday. It was a Lionsgate portal 888.
Yeah.
And, a lot of them were about my business because I've never been able to visualize it. And that's how I've been previously with relationships too. Like, I just couldn't visualize what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And the universe can't give it to us if we don't know what we
Yeah.
want. So, yeah, I'm still on the journey of fully trusting myself. And I trust myself, but
Good.
evolving and learning this, like, how do I become an entrepreneur, but still stay grounded in my practices and find that balance of like
Mm-hmm.
work and play. And,
Yeah.
I'm on the journey. It's still happening.
Yeah, and that, talking about that balance, in your experience, how have you somewhat, right? There's no like in my personal opinion, there's no like perfect balance, but how have you navigated that experience with mental and physical health, having like, this whole life experience of transformations?
It's so interesting. So I'm going through it right now. It's funny because
Mm-hmm.
I am dating a fitness and nutrition coach.
I did not know that.
My whole life, I have never taken fitness and nutrition seriously at all. I've always been really good at the mental stuff. And it's
Mhm.
actually funny because him and I are opposites. Like, he's always been really good at the physical stuff, but not as much in the mental stuff.
Mm.
And so I am now going through this transformation where I'm realizing where I have neglected myself in kind of the physical way. And
Mm-hmm.
that might be what I need to take myself to the next level, is to find
So
consistency.
cool. Yeah.
I've never had that before.
Physically,
But it,
physically, right?
yeah, physically. But it's funny because I've definitely gone like this my whole life. And I well, let's say it's like I'm doing
A
like a
little
little
bit,
wave
just a little
kind
bit.
of going up,
Yeah.
right? A little bit
Yeah.
of ups and downs and waves, but physical and mental health definitely go hand in hand 100%. And I'm excited to be on this journey where I'm taking it to the next step. But it's so true. Like, our inner world is reflected by our outer world.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that we feel about ourselves, the way that we feel about the world, like the things that go on our head, literally it's like a movie projector. Like, it gets projected out to us and it's not as super obvious. And so I see this with my clients all the time. Like, if you have negative self-talk in your head, you're creating that on the
Yeah.
outside. And that's one of the biggest things of this
Oh,
spiritual
yeah.
journey. Like, we can't blame anyone but ourselves for our
Mhm.
experience. And
Yeah.
so I think that the mental stuff definitely comes first. I feel like if we're working on the physical and not working on the mental, we're just doing ourselves a disservice. And I mean, you don't glow the same way when you're not like being self-aware and
Mhm.
going inward and saying, I'm working on myself, I'm healing my traumas, I'm able to recognize my triggers. Like,
Mhm.
I think the sexiest thing is someone that's self-aware. And if you're self-aware and you can understand what you've been through and how you've created your reality, like, then your outer world is going to reflect. So I think both
Yes.
definitely go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's really cool that you found your balance in the person, in your partner, because you have what he didn't have and he has what you didn't have. And I think that's really cool when one finds that within someone else, and not because you're gonna rely on it, but you're gonna learn from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's literally exactly opposites attract. And I never would
Yeah.
have thought that that would have worked, but that's so true. We're able to like make
Somehow
up what the other lacks. Yeah.
Somehow, yeah, somehow it happens. You're like, why aren't you like me? It's probably a good thing. Um,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this now, because I want to talk about what you have going on right now. What are you excited about for Tyguenne, for your programs, what you have to offer to people? Share with us what you've got.
Yes, I'm so excited. Not long ago, I launched the Awakened Nomad Spiritual Mentorship, which is my custom spiritual mentorship program for nomadic souls. So if you're like a free spirit, if you like to adventure,
Mm-hmm.
to me, obviously travel was such a huge part of my spiritual awakening journey. And I feel like when you're a traveler or when you're a nomad or when you're a free spirit,
Mm-hmm.
you have this energy about you and you have this mindset where you're ready to dive in, you're ready to explore, you're not afraid of stepping outside of your comfort
Yeah.
zone and trying new things. And this, like, these are my people. And so I'm really excited. I created this
Yeah.
program specifically to help you tap into your intuition, to raise your energetic frequency, to figure out what your purpose is through your abilities. We all have spiritual abilities, and that is what's going to lead you to your purpose. I'm all about finding cosmic connections. So, reaching a frequency where you can meet people in your life that elevate you and bring you up. And it could be friendships, it could be love. I believe in
Yeah.
finding your destined destinations. So, these places in the world that are meant for you to thrive. And it's like combining all of these things together. My program is a 6-month mentorship. We work one on one. We have bi-monthly calls. We connect on Slack, so where you get access to me. Usually I send voice notes on there. Now that I'm like obsessed with voice notes, I can barely text
I know,
anymore.
right? I love voice notes because I sometimes we have so much to say, like podcasting, and we're just like, all right, another note, and it cuts you off sometimes. So
Yeah, no,
good. I'm
totally.
so
Yep.
excited for this, the spiritual nomad, right? 6 months.
The Awakened
Oh,
Nomad
the Waken
Spiritual
Nomad.
Mentorship.
I
Yeah,
keep connecting
6-month
you to
program.
spiritual.
No, it works too. The spiritual
Yeah.
nomad, the awakened nomad. Yeah, for me, I really wanted to take things to the next level because people were coming to me for just psychic readings. And I noticed a lot of my clients kept coming back. And I started
Mhm.
feeling like, yes, this is psychic guidance. Like for me, a couple of my clients call me their therapist. They don't even call me their psychic. They call me their therapist.
Her
And
clients call her that, okay?
yeah. It yeah, it's how I could take it to the next level because coming just for mentorship every once in a while wasn't really enough. So
Mhm.
having more those touch points and having more of that ability to connect and really like help like elevate and take you in this rocket ship to like, okay, I know you
Yes.
could be here, you know you could be here, your spirit guides
Yes.
know you could be here. So for me, the 6 months is where we can really create massive change and massive transformation to really make a difference and have my clients feeling clarity.
Yeah, yeah, it's really great to have a coach, a mentor, a guide, as somebody. I mean, right now it's like Olympics time, so I've been watching these Olympics, and all these amazing pro athletes have a guide, have a mentor, and it's so important to have. And so I think if someone wants to tap into their intuition, learn about that, travel, be a nomad, find their purpose. And if they have a guide like you, I think that's something that's really powerful. And it like literally quantum leaps people into the whatever goal that is that they want. So that's really exciting. Yay.
I
And
love that you said
so,
quantum leap. That's so
yes.
true. Really taking from one reality to the
Mhm.
next, like so quickly. And I had guides on my journey, so I know that it's important. Like it really does just get us there so much faster. You nailed
For
that.
sure. And so if someone wanted to work with you, and your mentorship and your psychic healing and any gifts that you have, and they want to work with you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Tyguenne. It's spelled Tyguenne. I know it's a doozy,
I will
but you can
put it
find
in
me
the
on
show notes
Instagram.
too.
Also thebeautifulshift.com. The Beautiful Shift, that was the website that I started back in 2016, and it
Look at
still
that.
really
Yeah.
touches my heart because it's really like that's what I want to take people on. That's what I was going through when I started this. It started as a blog, The Beautiful
Hmm.
Shift, and now it has evolved. And
Love
so
it.
I just,
It's
yes,
it still works.
thebeautifulshift.com. Let's take you on the
Love
beautiful.
it. So I will include all her links and her Instagram in the show notes. And I didn't tell you about this one before, but if somebody wanted to learn from you, from your experience that someone shared with you, some like a learning that you would want to share with someone, what would that be?
I mean, my number one thing is always going to be trust your intuition. I feel like we can all hear that and say that till we're blue in the face. And for me, it's like get to know your intuition.
Hmm.
Like truly get to feel what it feels like when your intuition is speaking to you. What do you feel in your body? What do you feel in your heart? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel light? Does it feel warm? What does it feel like? Because I'm a huge believer that if you tap into your intuition and if you follow your intuition, and so many of the guides I've had along the way too have challenged me in my intuition of getting me to tap in deeper to my inner knowing. And so my biggest piece of advice that has been advised to me also is get to know your intuition and do not let anyone ever talk you out of what your intuition already knows.
Boom. So that is something everybody remember. Go figure out your intuition, learn more about your intuition. If you don't know how, go to Tyguenne. That's what I will say. So thank you so much, Tyguenne, for being on here. This has been really great to hear and listen and just learn a little bit more about what it all entails. And honestly, just learning about you is just really great. So yeah, as I like can talk spiritual and learn spiritual stuff all day long. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Carla.
All right, that is the end of this episode, this conversation with Tyguenne. And I hope that you found it as enlightening and motivating and inspiring as I did. And so here's two things that I learned from our conversation. First, it's the importance of trusting your intuition. Her story really drives home how crucial it is to listen to that inner voice, no matter how unconventional it might be. Secondly, having a mentor or guide can make an incredible difference in your personal and spiritual growth, whether it's for your intuitive development, your spiritual practices, or just navigating life's twists and turns. And someone who's walked the path before you can be incredibly grounding and encouraging. So remember to follow her at her Instagram page. Last thing is, if you have any questions on the MMA, the NLP certification program, make sure to send me a message. And if you haven't done so already, please share, rate, and subscribe to the podcast because it helps me so much to pop up on these platforms. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Metafit Metamind Podcast, at Coach Carlita. And if you have any questions, if you want to be on the podcast, if you want to share your story, let me know so you can get the link and you can apply to be on the podcast. So thank you so much for listening to this episode up to this point. My name is Carla Rodriguez. This is Metafit Metamind Podcast, where we are normalizing conversations that we would have never had. Until next time.